Hey fellas, that was yes a transition from my ass, because I don't know what other cool transition to do here, and all of my videos have had some kind of a transition, so I'm sorry, we'll work with what we can. Anyway, it's been a while since we made an amulet together, over 2 years by now, and back then I asked you what kind of gods or goddesses you would want to see, and Mr. Black as Hell said that he would want to see Surtr, which is funny if you consider where the name Surtr comes from. Is that Surtr himself that's saying this? Either way, I think it's a really cool idea and I want to give it a go. And surprisingly enough, we have actually quite a lot of evidence and ritual worship on Surtr and so on. So there is a lot of places to draw inspiration from, luckily. So let's start by going over what we know of him while I design the amulet in Blender. Surtr or Surt is a being from Norse mythology. His name means like dark or black, or like the color of coal, basically like charcoal. He is of the jotünn family, and these are beings that usually are in hostility with the Norse gods. Jotünn are mostly described as hideous, but can also be beautiful. For example, Skadi is a jotünn and is said to be pleasant to look at. Surtr, on the other hand, is described as a being that only a mother could love, and as far as we know, he doesn't really have a mom, so that perhaps explains why he is a bit upset. He is the guardian and ruler of Muspelheim, one of the 9 realms, and is foretold to do battle during Ragnarok, which is when the gods basically meet their end in Norse mythology. He has a flaming sword, which I've depicted here with him holding it with rays around it, and during Ragnarok is the slayer of Freyr, because Freyr gave away his sword to get a girl. I've depicted Surtr here with an ox skull, and the reason for that is because we have evidence of likely offerings to Surtr from the Viking age and later times. In Iceland there is a cave called Surtr's Cave, in which ox and sheep bones have been found, as well as a stone ship. And the 12th century Landnáma book describes a journey of a jarl's son to that cave to read a poem of praise to the jotun that resides in that cave, likely a face of Surtr himself. It is unclear if the offerings in the cave were conducted to get something from him or to get his alliance, because life on Iceland, especially during those times, was very hard, or if it was rather done to please him and not bring forth Ragnarok. There are many places bearing the name Surtr around Scandinavia nowadays, and this hints at Surtr being a rather important influence to the people of the past. On this piece I've created the backside of the Surtr Amulet so that if you flip it upside down, his hide that he is wearing will look like a volcano that's erupting. So the hide resembles the mountain, and around it, on the bottom part of him, which then would be the upper part, you can see flames flying out. And this is to pay homage to his worship on Iceland and his figure of a flaming fellow overall. So after that magic is done, we're gonna take this USB, put it in my new printer, print out the figure so I could make a mold out of it. So we have a new family member over here, that is the Elegum Mars 2, and I will be using this super fast amber colored resin for my prints. So now that it has printed out, I have it like this. Will it focus? Don't focus on my face, focus on this, good. It's very easy for me to just pop it off from here. Very nice build plate. Oh, I gotta hide again. And it stays like this. And why it is so good and convenient is because it is translucent and I need to cure it. So first it will go into 99% alcohol. Then it's ready for UV curing, and I usually, when it's summertime, I take them outside and they cure super fast there. Black resin cures the slowest, translucent or white cures really fast, and I've had very good success with these. And I don't put the caps onto my 3D printers. Instead, what I've used the Elegum Mars 2 one for is an alcohol bin. So I will be soaking the Surtr in here, and this is what it will look like after alcohol. And now I leave it out in the sunshine because sun has UV light and it makes it cure. This is ready now. As you can see, it is a bit like dusty. It's gotten dust from the window here. So I will be brushing it off with a toothbrush as well. And one of the best ways to know if it's ready is if you touch it. 3D model otherwise has like a rubbery feel to it. But when I touch it now, it is very dry. So I know it's ready to be molded. Just in case, I am gonna put it through something called Inhibit X. What that does is it provides extra protection against the silicone become very mushy around the 3D printed figure. It is because these have sulfur in it and the silicone doesn't cure if there's sulfur being released. So you really want to have them in UV. I mean, with the magic of video editing, this happened instantaneously. In reality, I've had this out in the sun for a week. I think you can go with like maybe 2 days, 3 days, and if you're gonna use Inhibit X anyway, you can just cure it in UV for half an hour and then put it in there. I'm just gonna be extra sure, and we'll see how it turns out. I need to use the exhibit as well, and I'm gonna have it in here. So I'm gonna need to shake it really well. But this is, I think, very poisonous, so don't touch it with your bare hands or breathe it in. Basically all I'm gonna do is just pour it on there like that, and then either I'll get a glove or some pincette or whatever those are called in English. Pinchers, I think. But I'm gonna go with a glove this time. Mostly because I can't find the pinchers. Basically just soak it here like this. And then let it rest on the table until it dries, and then I repeat it like 3 times or so and it should be fine. So this has had like 3 coatings now. I would say that's enough. Let's see if it works out in the mold or no. Oh, and also I forgot to mention, I am going to be using Legos to make my mold this time. I used to have these 3D printed casings for my molds, these ones. How they would work is that I would put the mold like this, and then I would encase it in it. Oops. Like this, and pour the silicone in here. But I figured with Legos it's much better because these are fixed for one size basically. If you see, this fits here very perfectly. If I were to have a bigger figure, it wouldn't fit in here, and I do have some bigger figures and smaller ones as well. So it is much more better with Legos that I can adjust the size of it. So here's a plate for it. I'm gonna build it on top of it, and I will 3D print myself a custom made piece that I can attach this to with a glue gun. I tested with glue a bit if it would stick to it, because I cured it a little bit. It should work fine. So what I'm gonna do now is it's gonna go on here. Nice, it fits. This one is gonna go on top here, and then I will build a frame around it and pour the silicone in. Hopefully it's nice. Also shout out to my mom that kept all the Legos I have accumulated over my life. Her idea was probably that my children can play with them, but this is also a good solution for it, I feel like. And my masterpiece is ready. The good thing with this is the size for all of the gods and the goddesses that I make, so I can reuse these Legos all the time. So that's really nice. I don't need to find new ones or anything. It's perfect. And now this goes into the vacuum chamber because I need to get the air out of the silicone mold. It should cure for half an hour to an hour. That silicone that I have cures pretty fast, meaning that it will get hard within an hour or so, but I am gonna let it sit overnight and cut it open tomorrow. Here's the silicone I currently use. It's pretty nice. It's 1:1 ratio, and I'm gonna measure it out by weight. I know, it's the cleanest scale you've ever seen. That's 200 grams now. Perhaps it is enough. And then you need to shake it really well. So now that the silicone mold has set for a day, gonna feel if it's stiff. It is stiff, it has hardened. I am gonna be cutting it open. I forgot to put tape around this mold, but I guess there's no issue. A little bit of it poured out, as you could hear from me taking the mold out of the vacuum chamber. But I guess it is fine. Other times I would add tape to it, just in case though, so it doesn't pour out from the sides or something. Looks like everything has worked out nicely, and I will be using a knife to cut it open. And I will create a zigzag pattern on the side, because what this allows me is that when I put the mold back together to put wax in it, I know that it will align perfectly. If I were to cut a straight line, that will cause it to shift a little bit, but the zigzag pattern makes it all fall in place very, very nicely. And now I will fill it with this wax I have over here. I need to make sure that it's the right temperature, because if it's too cold, it won't pull the details, and if it's too warm, it will create like a mushy corner around it. And my wax that I have over here is 85 degrees Celsius, so that's what I will be using to create a wax mold of the Surtr. It looks like it turned out very nicely, so I'll be making a couple of more of these, and then I'm gonna make a wax tree, which I can later use to burn out the wax and then pour bronze into it instead. And that way I will have myself a bronze Surtr very soon. And I am using a glue gun to glue this all together. You could also use wax itself to mix it all together, or to burn it together, melt it together rather. I find it really, really comfortable with the glue gun, because the tip of the glue gun is warm, so I can change details if I need to and melt it together if I need to. But I felt that the glue gun really holds it together really well. It's really easy to use. It burns out of the way when it's in the kiln. So yeah, I have gone with the glue gun. It has served me very, very well. And here we have the finished product. It will be ready to use. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put it into a steel kind of container that I have. It's basically like some kind of a squarish pipe. And I will be using plaster that I will mix with water to create the mold. And now of course they go into the vacuum chamber, because I need to get rid of the air bubbles, because they have these neck holes so air can get stuck in there, plus mixing things causes air bubbles. So to get rid of those, this is what I do. And this plaster will now set for roughly 2 hours. After I have poured it, it hardens, then I cut open the mold. And after it has set for 2 hours, I will set it above boiling water, because that will melt out the wax from it, and I can reuse that wax to create these trees. And once the wax is gone, I can create a little foot on underneath it as well, which will catch bronze, debris, and so on. After all of that is done, I put it into the kiln, and it needs to stay there for roughly 10 to 12 hours. So we'll come back tomorrow and start with the pouring. So now that it has been in the kiln for 11 hours, it's ready to be poured. And I've brought down the temperature to 500 degrees, because once again, that is where I've seen the best results at. So we're ready to pour some bronze into it, and hopefully everything turns out nice. And now we have the tree from bronze, and I will clean it up a little bit to see if everything is kinda, looking good. This is like the first inspection. If it looks good, I will cut it open. If it's not, I just would melt it down again. But this one seems to have come out very, very nicely. So I will just clean it up a bit so I have an easier time getting to it with my saw, and let's see how it turns out. So here we have this piece, and the best way I've found to clean this up is to put it in boiling water, and for that I'm gonna use this little bowl over here and this trusty fellow over here to boil the water, and let it sit there for a little bit, and after that it should be ready for grinding down here a little bit and ebonol, which will give it a darker shade. Now when it's nice and shiny, it's ready for the treatment to create the patina on it. And why this is also good is because not only does it rub off any residue and stuff on it that might interact with the patina, it also makes the sharp edges very soft, so it gets rid of all little sparks that could cut you and hurt you. Because this thing down here, before it could really like cut me, I can just scrape on it with my finger and I am completely fine. So let's see how it turns out when it's gotten some ebonol as well. And to dip it in ebonol, I have this kind of thing that goes through here. Oink! I can just dip one in there. Super convenient. While the black patina would make a lot of sense for Surtr, I will go through the usual cleaning process that I do, which is brushing it off with a hard brush. We call it bear's tongue, I'm not sure what it's called in English. And overall getting rid of some minor mistakes here and there if there's any loose bits or something like that, and filing here and there. And as with all of these god statues that I do, I made a little video for him. So let's look how he turned out. So that's that, folks. If you watched this far, thank you very much. And if you have any gods or goddesses or any creature for that matter you would want to see, let me know so I could have a go at it, and I promise this time it won't take me 2 years. I actually am thinking about making these videos every single month, or maybe even more occasionally. And until the housing market is a bit better, I will be residing in these local mounds over here. So from my 4,000 to 5,000 year old home, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a very good day.